Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Alex Beyond Thoughts podcast with me, Alex, your host. I'm so stoked to be having a special guest on the podcast today. I'm not even going to hold it back because you've seen the title, you've seen the description, you know who I've got on today. I am so pleased and very, very excited to be welcoming the Holistic Queen, the naturopath, the mindset coach, the person who is helping women live a simple, holistic life through their optimal habits, this multifaceted baddie. We have Zoe on the podcast today.
Hello. Hi, Alex. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm so excited to have this chat.
I am so excited to have you on. I was just talking to Zoe before we started recording, being like, I'm so nervous, I'm so excited, I'm so ready to record this podcast. And yeah, I'm so excited to have you on. Thank you for coming on.
No, thank you for having me on.
How are you today? Are you doing good?
Yeah, I'm good. Feeling really good today. I'm actually, about to go on holiday. So, yeah, I'm feeling really good, feeling really chilled. So, yeah, life's good.
Amazing. I love that. Pre-holiday is just, it's that build-up feeling where you're like, oh, this is going to be good. I'm going to
Yeah.
enjoy this.
Yeah, so excited. How are you?
Good. Yeah, it's been a long day. Guys, the issue is with all of the mastermind girls, we're on separate continents. Therefore, I'm always on a different level of the day to them. So
Yeah.
one minute I'm like really sleepy and going to bed, and they're like just getting up for the day and like getting ready for the next day. And then the next, like we flip around, and then I'm the one like getting up and getting ready for the day and
Yeah,
getting
and then
ready
they're
to go.
going to
And
bed.
they're the ones going to bed.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah, it's so cool
I'm
though.
constantly in a... Yeah, no, carry on.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, it's so cool, though, that we can have, such a good group of women and we're, all over the world, and we can just have these, deep connections. It's so cool.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And I hope you guys put up with me falling asleep on calls sometimes because, we get tired over here.
Yeah. No, but you're committed. You're there.
Hell yeah.
So good.
But yeah, so essentially, Zoe and I met through the mastermind, through our mutual coach, who we love and is a
Yes.
goddess herself. So that is really where we got to know each other. Zoe is an amazing person. She just vibes on my level so much. Like, words that Zoe puts out, I'm like, wow, you just put thoughts to what's going on in my head. That's the kind of vibe I feel with Zoe. And yeah, I'm just so excited to explore what you've got going on right now. So this podcast episode is essentially diving into what Zoe's got going on. So my first question, Zoe, is going to be, what kind of led you into becoming a coach, and more specifically, like your expertise of holistic coaching?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's been a bit of a journey. So I'll start from the start. and yeah.
Go for it.
And then, it might be a bit of a long winded answer, but I'll start from the start. So basically, I used to be like a massive party animal. Like, I didn't care about my health at all. I was just partying. I just was just living my best life. So I thought. And then eventually, it was really random how I got into naturopathy. I just was like, I don't know what to do with my life. I'd just been traveling. I just got back and I was a bit lost. And I was like, what am I doing? And my boyfriend at the time was like, oh, why don't you just do this course? And I was like, okay, yeah, I'll do it. It was the Thursday, and then the Monday I started uni, and it was chemistry, biology, so hectic. And I was like, fuck, what have I gotten myself into? This is so hectic. Am I cut out for this? But I just the more I did it, the more I fell in love with, natural health and just everything that I was learning, and I was just applying it to my life as I was doing the degree. And it was a freaking hard degree. It was when you think holistic sometimes, well, for me, even naturopaths, I was like, oh yeah, it's very hippie and stuff, and it's it's so science, so that was very challenging for me. But to prove to myself that, yeah, I because I didn't really like school. I was a bit of a rebel in school and was partying and stuff. So to finish that degree, it was just so exciting for me. And then, as I went on, the more and more I started to learn about, business. And with naturopaths, you usually kind of go out on your own a lot anyway. So we didn't really learn too much about business in uni. But it was once I'd finished uni, I was kind of okay, what next? And then I stumbled into the coaching industry, and I was like, this is a whole this is a whole nother world out here. what? Like,
For sure.
what is happening? And it was just like so cool. I was just like dipping my toe in, and I would start to go to like, different events, and I did like, my NLP training, and I just did like so many different courses and things. And I was just like, I like this. Like, I never wanted to really like work for someone else. Like, I always liked the idea of freedom and like,
Yeah.
being a rebel. So yeah, to be able to like, yeah, be open to this world really was just like so powerful for me. And then to be able to like mesh the mindset stuff with my naturopathy, it took a bit of a journey. Like, part of me like separated it out quite a lot. Like, I was like, oh,
Mm.
it has to be this, and like, or it has to be this. Whereas now, like recently, I've really landed in like this, this holistic queen like archetype of like, it gets to be all of it. Like, that's what holistic means to me. It gets to be everything, and really
Mm.
owning that I am so multifaceted, and I do have those different modalities and all of that I can bring into my coaching. So yeah, that was kind of like a bit of a long-winded answer, but yeah,
No, not at all.
that's kind of like my journey.
I love that. That's so cool. It's interesting as well how like you kind of fell into it, but actually it's given you so much of like an expertise base to
Yeah,
like then merge with something you're really passionate about as well, and the mindset stuff. And you've been able to make something out of both and like
yeah.
exist in duality of both. And although they very much complement each other, like I can definitely see how it would be easy to separate them, but also it just makes sense to merge.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that's so cool.
100%. Yeah, and I think that's what I've noticed, like over, through uni, we do like quite a lot of hours of like clinic. And what I noticed is, yeah, like a lot of it does come down to mindset and, people's
Mm,
habits and their behaviors and things. It's like all well and good for me to tell someone, take these supplements or, drink water or whatever it may be. But it's like, if they've still got those self-sabotaging behaviors underneath, or, they get to a point where it's like they get too far away from what's there like comfortable, if you're not addressing both of those things, like the supplements, like just use that as an example, but like if you're not addressing
yeah.
that, and then also the underlying factors that keep them where they are, yeah, it's just you do need both. So yeah, it's really cool that I was able to
Mm,
like really land in merging it all together. And yeah, it's so funny that I just landed in it, and I think it was the best thing for me as well at the time. Like, the path that I was on, it really just like switched up my path. And when I started learning about health, I was like, oh my god, like, why does everybody not know this stuff? Like, why don't we get taught this
yeah.
in school? Like, it just kind of blew my mind. Like, I was just very naive to it and just didn't realize any of the things that I learned. So yeah.
Mm. It's such a big thing, isn't it? When you're in this world and like in the world that you are in your holistic and your health practices, it's kind of like a wait, people don't know this. But
Yeah.
actually, even as you're learning it, you're like, I didn't know this 10
Yeah.
minutes ago.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, how did I not know this? And you
Yeah.
want to scream it from the rooftops, but
Yeah.
also you have to be like willing to recognize that other people have to have their process. And as
Yeah.
much as you want them to just like adopt it as quickly as you have, other people are going to be resistant to it at first. They're not going to want to listen to you scream it from the rooftops
Yeah.
because they're not in that same process yet. But
Yeah.
I do just find it so funny how in so many different disciplines of this kind of same umbrella of work, of health and wellness and movement and nutrition and things like this, it's like a moment of coming to yourself and being like, everyone has to know this.
Yeah.
How do we not all know this? And then having to reel yourself back in and say, because we're not taught, because it's
Yeah.
never been brought to us in the way that we're now bringing it to people. And
Yeah.
actually, we can now take some responsibility in that to be the people that are delivering it in an
Yeah.
alternative education, to be the people that are offering these services to everyone, because the people that should be are not.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. Like, just going back to what you were saying before, like when you want to like shout it from the rooftops and things, like I
Mm,
definitely learned that the hard way. Like when I first started out, I was like, oh my God, like you need to do this, you need to do that. And then as I've like, progressed and gotten older and things, I'm like, yeah, like everyone actually has to have their process. Like I can be here to, post the content or, spark a
yeah.
conversation or give a different perspective, but like people have to want to do it for themselves. It's like a massive thing that I've learned. It has to come from like that intrinsic, like, I want to do this. I'm not doing this because somebody's told me to do it. So yeah, that's been a massive
Mm-hmm.
learning for me, especially, you know, with my family and stuff. I used to be like, you know, like this and that, and like, and they're like, well, just chill. And now it's
Yeah.
kind of like, now I've pulled back. Some of them actually come to me and they're like asking me questions and stuff. And it's cool how
Yeah.
it just flips around when you stop trying to like, you know, force things. So yeah, it's really
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's like a really interesting thing as well, like giving people their space in order to actually come to you is a
Yeah.
huge thing I had to learn, because as soon as I got into the mindset space and as soon as I started having some kind of emotional intelligence and building my own self-awareness, I then kind of started projecting on others and being like, you have to build your self-awareness, you have to build your emotional intelligence because I have, and now I've fixed one, two, three things. I'm
Yeah.
better than you. And that
Yeah.
was a real projection I was holding when I first started in the industry and when I first started like knowing myself as a deeper as a person.
Yeah.
And it was confronting when I kind of got called out by my coach to be like, um, that's a
Yeah.
bit leaky. That's
Yeah.
that's a bit of some shadow play coming in here.
Yeah.
And it was just really funny to witness how just because I was so passionate about it, just because I felt like I transcended it, meant that I then was flipping around on other people. And it's so easy to do that with health as well. If you're on a diet kick, or if you're listening, I've got air quotes in my hands right now. If you're on a diet kick, if you're the one learning about nutrition, if you're the one like going to the gym and doing this, that, and the other, it's very easy to kind of sit on your high horse and preach to other people. But
Yeah.
actually letting them find their own process and come to you, you're
Yeah.
probably going to be able to help them much quicker by
Exactly.
allowing them to have that space.
Yeah. And it's just remembering as well, like, you know, for me, it's remembering where I came from and the journey that I had to go on. And it's funny that you said, because it's like, yeah, when I started getting into shadow work, I'm like, that person's doing this and they're doing this. And it's like, hang on a minute, they're actually just holding up a mirror for me as to where I'm still doing that. And it's like, it's very easy when you do get into this space to be like, oh, well, like all these people are external to me. But it's like, hang on a second. Yeah, like
Yeah.
it's easy, yeah, to see it within others. But it's like, let's just like hold up the mirror and then yeah, how can I like choose to evolve, you know, these parts of myself rather than start to notice it in other people. So it's really
Yeah,
fascinating.
for sure. For sure. Oh, I love talking about this. It gets me so
Yeah.
excited.
Yeah, me
But
too.
I do want to I do want to circle back quickly, because I know for some people listening, they're going to be like, okay, well, I kind of understand here, but what are we talking about when we say holistic? What are we talking about when we say naturopath? What are we
Yeah.
talking about when we say mindset in Zoe's world? Because
Yeah.
mindset, I think, can look quite different in a lot of different worlds.
Yeah,
So
for
let's
sure.
zone in on those three specific words and kind of just touch on what you believe they are
Yeah.
in your world.
Yeah. So with naturopathy, the way that I usually explain it to people, it's like I'm basically a nutritionist, but I can use like liquid herbs as well. So that's the easiest like
Okay, cool.
explanation of it. So it's usually, yeah, you know, we use like supplements, liquid herbals, you know, compounding, and then diet and lifestyle. So the naturopathy and the holistic, they really do tie in together. Whereas with naturopathy, it's not so much of the mindset. So that's where the holistic kind of bridges the naturopathy and the mindset together. So for me, mindset is like, I guess there's different layers to it. Like I'm very much like, I love to help people at the beginning of their journey, like who are just, you know, figuring out like, oh, this self-awareness stuff, or like, you know, taking self-responsibility, or realizing, you know, they have the power of choice and all of that kind of, you know, really the foundational stuff, because that's the stuff that really helped me. But then there's also the layer deeper of like the shadow work side of things that just like changed my life. So that's kind of like mindset to me. It's like, it's kind of like the I guess, quote unquote, surface level stuff, but then it's also the deep stuff, because you need both. It's not just like, you can't just go deep without having that, like the other
Yeah.
one. So that's kind of like the mindset work that I utilize. And then I guess for me,
Mhm.
holistic, it's kind of like, I kind of want to break the stigma around what holistic means, because I think, and I might be wrong, but this might just be an assumption, but it can be like, you know, it's just like love and light, and it's just like, you know, laying in the bushes, like not the bushes, but like in the fields and stuff. And like, that is one part of it. But for me, it's really just like looking at your life from a holistic lens, like looking at your health, and then actually doing like the mindset work, and just like bridging that all together, and knowing that it's not just like one thing. It's not just, you know, nutrition that's going to change your life. It's actually just like zooming out, and your life as a whole, that's what's going to allow you to keep elevating. So yeah, that's a bit of a long-winded answer.
No. It's never a long-winded answer.
Okay.
It gives me all the stuff I need to know.
Sometimes I get on a riff and I'm like
No, honestly, my riffs are legendary. Sometimes I say, I'm going to do a 5-minute podcast episode, and 45 minutes later, I'm still talking.
Yeah,
So
it's the
don't,
best
you're
though,
talking to the
like
right
in flow.
person.
Yeah, perfect.
um, that's so cool. And I think touching on like the mindset part and like the shadow work, and specifically around holistic health,
Yeah,
I think it's pretty integral if you're working on one part of this, and this part of the pie is your health and your wellness and living a holistic life. You kind of by default have to be working on your mindset, because without having some kind of control over your mind, over your thought process, over your habits and your conditioned behavior, any work you do on your health is unlikely to stick. And I think
yeah,
that's the like link that diet culture, especially in our parents and grandparents generation,
yeah,
massively missed, because it was heavily focused on shame, on doing
yeah.
things in an obsessive manner, doing things in short, fast bursts that never really
All or
built
nothing
safe
kind of
habits.
mindset. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. And they really missed out on the element of doing it, first of all, for just good reasons, for good health reasons for
yeah,
themselves, but
yeah,
also having this level of control that is a safe and healthy way of
yeah,
being able to recognize hunger cues, being able to recognize what on a nutritional scale is valuable versus not valuable, like these kind
yeah,
of things. They were missing so much of that, and I think even now we're probably missing quite a bit of it, and it's only because we're in this space that we
yeah,
have so much knowledge. But for
yeah,
so many other people, you ask them what's the difference between an apple and a bag of Skittles, and they're like,
yeah,
I could take a guess, kind of thing.
yeah.
um so it's super interesting that we're now coming into a space where people like you are actually saying, hold up, guys, we can't really do one without the other. And
Yeah.
it's super valuable, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's been challenging for me in the space to be fully seen because a lot of the fitness industry, it pushes like the calories and, it's okay to have
Mm,
like, and I'm not saying it's, you can have a chocolate bar, eat chocolate, things like that, but it's like, it's not the same. Like, and that's where one of my big key pillars is like, it's not just calories in, calories out. Like, I work with a lot of
mm,
people, with thyroid issues and things like that. And it is, there can be a lot of, of that age group with like my grandparents and my parents where it's like, they're like, oh, but I'm not eating anything, but I'm not losing weight. And it's like, hang on a minute, we need to look at actually what's happening internally and looking at your body systems and how your metabolism's
mm,
actually working. It's not just like, it's not as simple as just like don't eat anything. And then like, it's just not a very healthy kind of mindset. And something that I kind of grew up around was that whole, like, oh, we'll start on Monday. And like, we're looking in the magazines and like all the
mm.
girls. And,
Yeah.
luckily I didn't, I don't know, maybe I was just like naive or oblivious, or I just went off and partied instead. But I didn't
Yeah.
get like into that where I never was really tracking or restricting, or it just didn't,
Mm,
pass down to me, which I'm grateful for because yeah, I know a lot of women where it can really impact their mental health, and it's like thinking they have to do it a certain way where it's like you actually just get to make it a part of your life. It doesn't have to be this all or nothing mindset of just
mm-hmm,
like, you're on Monday and then you fall off on the weekend, and then it just creates this like cycle of like shame
mm-hmm,
and guilt, and it's unsustainable in the long term. And that's one of the real like the massive parts of what I do. It's like we're making long-term habits, like we're doing this for what's happening in 50 years, 60 years, like we're preventing chronic illness and things like that. It's so
yeah.
much more than just like like how we look, it's more how we feel. So
Mm-hmm,
yeah,
yeah. And I think that's so key that, like, yes, you're investing in yourself now, and there might not be obvious issues right now, but actually, you're preventing chronic health issues. You're preventing disastrous health outcomes. You're actually putting steps in place now in your 20s, in your early 30s, in your 40s, to make sure that when you're 60, when you're 80, these things that you could be dealing with are either much less or non-existent, because you've put in the time and the effort and the steps right now to take care of yourself and build your education and build your mindsets and build your actionable habits, so that you're protecting future you too, and also future generations. Even if not a
exactly.
byproduct of you, you're protecting other people, because in the generations and the people surrounding you, you're already exhibiting healthier ways of living.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's like, it is like zooming out and having that, like that long term mindset, and knowing that it's not always going to be like, you're not going to notice, the change maybe tomorrow or the next day, or like you
Mm,
will start to feel better over time. But it's, yeah, like really zooming out and and focusing on what's actually happening in the long term. And I think that sometimes, and I'm guilty of that, to be honest, sometimes with myself, it's like you want that instant gratification, but it's like, hang on a minute, like, what if we were playing the long game here? What if we were actually just looking at, or, ensuring we feel good now, so that we're setting ourselves up, yeah, like for future generations, for our kids, for our grandkids, things like that, and just like really instilling those, like, yeah, I guess those healthy habits for generations to come.
mm, for sure. And if you're someone listening to the podcast right now that's thinking, I have some of these habits, I'm thinking that I have some diet culture history. I might be thinking about taking on another diet culture thing heading into the new year, that kind of stuff. Definitely check out Zoe's page because Zoe has some amazing content and it's
Thank you.
it's going to give you insight if nothing else. So definitely check out Zoe's Instagram. It's going to be linked in the description. But if you're someone that's thinking that maybe I'm going to be slipping into this diet culture behavior, I might be making some habit choices that now I choose not to because I have this knowledge, then yeah, definitely go check out Zoe because you're going to learn so much, even in a couple Instagram scrolls.
Yeah. And yeah, that's it. Like, even through my content, I'm trying to like break this stigma around like having to track or having to, and I'm not making that wrong. Like, there's definitely a place for everything. But for me, in my world, it's like it just doesn't resonate. And I think a lot of women think that
Mm-hmm.
that's what they have to do to get what, the results that they want. And
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to. It gets to just be this. And it can take time to like really be intuitive with food and things like that, but it's also just like, it takes a lot of the pressure off when you're just focusing on like, okay, what can I eat to actually nourish my body, as opposed to like, what can
Mm-hmm.
I fit in this many calories? Like, it is restrictive. Like, it just like makes me want to restrict my body, whereas it's like, cool, I'm eating this protein because I know that it's, helping my muscles, it's helping my brain. So it's like really
Mm-hmm.
adopting that, or like shifting that mindset for like, I'm actually eating because I know that these nutrients are making me strong, they're making me healthy, they're making me happy, they're, you know you know increasing my, like, yeah, I don't know, like regulating my periods, like
Mm-hmm.
all the things. There's so many things. So
Yeah. And just because it definitely resonates with me in saying that, I think also if you're someone listening to this and you're thinking, I don't really restrict myself with like tracking calories or things like that, so maybe this isn't me, you can still restrict yourself in other ways. And that can be like not going to plans because you don't want to eat a certain thing, or it can be sucking in your stomach for 6 hours at work every day because you don't want anyone to see a roll on the side of your stomach, or
mm,
it can look like trying to make yourself smaller in photos or hide behind people so that you aren't seen. Like, these are kind of things that you're restricting and making yourself small. So if you aren't thinking that that's flagging for you as a way that you're restricting yourself, it probably is. So
yeah.
check yourself in that and give yourself some grace to say, actually, I probably need to be looking into this work because that might be me.
Yeah, and just like, yeah, from a shadow work lens, as you said, that it's usually when we're like, no, that's not me, I can't relate, and it's like usually that's, our biggest, I guess, like door to look into, where maybe it's not specifically exactly what, I'm mentioning about tracking calories, exactly like
Mm-hmm.
you said, but it's like, where is that happening in other areas? So it's like really cool to just, when you have that awareness, it's like, oh, how can I actually, like, relate this to my own life? And it might not even be health, it might be in, yeah, like other areas as well. So it's really cool once, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the holistic thing. It's like, once you see something in one area of your life, it's like you can kind of, you dissolve it in all your other areas of your life, because you've noticed the pattern kind of playing out. So you can be like, oh, that's
Yeah.
happening there, that's happening there, and it just starts to dissolve over time. So
Mm-hmm. It's so cool. Okay, I'm gonna steer us back on to you and like what you do because I could talk about this so
yeah.
much for so long. Um, I want to kind of get into your first steps into self development and like holistic life yourself, because I know you talked about sort of being a party animal and being a bit wild, but in terms of actually adopting this work for yourself and getting to work on your mindset and things like that, where did you kind of trip and fall specifically into this space?
Yeah, I think it did start. So it started with naturopathy, but even still, like throughout my degree, I was still like sort of partying. And then for me, the biggest like pivotal moment, I think, was, it was like throughout COVID actually. I moved states, so it was like yeah, it was quite chaotic. I was like, oh, I'm just moving to Queensland. Like everyone was like, you're actually crazy. Like everything's shut down. I couldn't even like drive over the border. Like I freighted my car up here, flew up, and it just like all lined up. Like it was just meant to be. And like everyone was literally like, you're insane. And I was like, yeah, probably. But like I just knew I had to do that. And yeah, I don't know, just like my life in Adelaide, I was just feeling a bit like stagnant, a bit stale. Like I was still kind of partying. I just like was doing my degree, but I still felt a bit lost. And then like in a way, like potentially I was running away, but like I've said this like on my Instagram before, I'm like, if you're running towards something greater, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like, yes, maybe I was running away from the pain, but I was actually running towards like something that I knew was going to be expansive for me. So yeah, I literally just packed up all my stuff, moved across to Queensland. And then yeah, it was like that in Queensland that I started to like really get opened up to like I did my NLP course, like met all these people like in the coaching industry. I just like had to put myself out there because I didn't know anyone, so I'd go to like breathwork events or like yoga or just like women's circles, and I just like started meeting all these like women and people who were just like entrepreneurs and like, you know, all this sort of stuff. And it was like kind of that, like in that time when I met all those people, I was like, I could fucking do this. And then I ended up like, I was still studying. So the last like year of my degree was pretty hectic. And then, yeah, when I finished uni, I just was like pretty much like all in. And then it's been a bit of a journey, like, you know, there's been a bit of a journey, like ups and downs, and like really has built my character as a person. But, yeah, I don't think I really answered your question. Went on a
No.
But yeah, so it was kind of like moving to Queensland was the most pivotal thing for me in terms of like being opened up to the mindset world, and then getting a coach. Actually, like my first coach, she was actually a naturopath as well. And it just really opened me up like to kind of meshing I don't know if she really meshed hers together. She was kind of like a business coach and a naturopath. Like she kind of kept hers separate. But then, yeah, it just opened me up to having a coach. And I kind of like dabbled. I did like a lot of courses and like, you know, a lot of mindset courses and things like that. And then once I finished uni, I was like, right, like, you know, started investing in like business stuff and like, yeah, like some business courses and a business coach and things like that. And it took me a while to kind of like, you know, find my groove, like the way I wanted to work, because you know, there's a lot of different ways you can do business. And when you don't know business very well, it's like, oh, like, is this the right way for me? And then, so it was all part of the journey. Like it was all meant to be like learning what I want to do, what I don't want to do, what I like all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's been a bit of a journey, but like, I feel like where I've landed now, I'm like in a really grounded and like, I've built a solid foundation now of like where I want to go with my life. So yeah, it's all very exciting.
Oh, there's so much I want to touch on in there, to be honest.
Yeah.
I feel like I have a million different questions now buzzing around my brain.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many things in that. Firstly, like the decision, obviously, to move not countries. It feels like that to me.
Yeah.
To move states. It's states
Yeah,
in
states.
Australia. Yeah. Move states, and then also going to the events and putting yourself out there and things like that, and then also getting a coach. There's so many things I want to touch on in there, but
yeah.
let me pick one because that's going to be overwhelming otherwise. I think I want to touch on the events and stuff and putting yourself out there with people, because I think that's something we don't really talk about enough, where actually you just moved states, a big decision in itself. And now you're going to events, you're meeting people, you're jumping on courses, you're finding a coach for yourself, these kind of things. In that kind of decision-making process, what are the immediate thoughts that come up that you're like, I was thinking about this, I'd made decisions on this. Like, what was the thought process behind actually getting yourself from being potentially in an isolated state or not doing these things to actually getting yourself to turn up and show up?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was when I first moved here, like uni was still online. So I did feel quite isolated for like the first couple of months. And I was like, I was like, maybe I need to move home. Like maybe this isn't for me. And then I was like, don't be ridiculous. Like, you know, you've made this move, like you do want to be here. So it was kind of like I was like, oh, like feeling really isolated. Like, what am I supposed to do? I was like moving away from the partying. I didn't want to, meet people out drinking and things. So I was like, I honestly don't even know how it came about. I think I just was like on Instagram, or like I got an ad for like the NLP thing, and that's where it really started. And then from there, like, there was like a hundred of us in the room, and like I'm quite close with still, quite a lot of the girls who I met in there. Like, follow each other on Instagram, and like one of my best friends I met, or like a couple of my best friends actually, we met in that room. So I think for me, it was like choosing between, okay, well, I'm either going to sit in my house and just do my uni and not evolve, or I'm going to just get myself out there. Like, as scary as it was, like to rock up, like,
Mm-hmm.
by myself to different events and things like that, I was like, I have to do this. Like, and yeah, I can get quite nervous sometimes before like doing things like that in big groups, but I was like, part of me was just like, fuck it. Like, you've got nothing to
Mm.
lose. Like, you're in a new space. Like, these people are like-minded. And I think for me, sometimes it's like I can get a bit overwhelmed where it's like, oh, like maybe I'm the smallest, fish in the pond or whatever it is. But that's been the most expansive thing for me, is like putting myself in those rooms where I might be the one who knows the least, but like I'm learning from
Mm.
different people. Like, when you don't know about the coaching industry, and then you're in a room with like, at least 50 of the people who are making, 6-7 figures, it's like intimidating, but then it becomes so normalized. Like, over time, when you're in these rooms and like around these people, it just becomes so normalized, and then it makes you think like, it just confirms the belief, like maybe maybe this is for me, like maybe I can actually achieve that, because you just see, like, quote unquote, how it's like not easy. Like, obviously they go through challenges and
Yeah,
stuff
yeah,
like
yeah.
that, but like, how achievable it actually can be. So yeah, I think it was just like being willing to take the risk. And I think that's something I take pride in. I've always, maybe sometimes it's gone a bit too far, but I've always been willing to, take the risk and like do the thing that people would tell me not to do, like even moving states, like in the middle of, everything that was going on in the world. And I just like, I'm very like, I guess, stubborn. It's like, I don't care what people
Mm.
think. Like, I do take on opinions, but I think there's always a part of me that's like, I actually just need to find out for myself. And if it fails, then so be it. Like, I've learned
Yeah.
something. Like, I think the past couple of years especially has really taught me resilience of like, even if it's not like quote unquote working, it's still leading me onto a path where, it's still moving me somewhere that I need to go, sort of thing. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think to come back and answer your question, I think like just being willing to put yourself out there and being willing to be the small fish, like, because you learn so
Mm-hmm.
much, you meet so many people, and people are like more accepting than sometimes we like can think, because like sometimes we get in our head, I'm like, oh my god, like, are they going to accept me, like all these things, and then you get in this
Mm.
room and these are the, like, some of the nicest people you've ever met, and it's like, oh, like it just creates that evidence for yourself, because if you don't
Mm-hmm.
do the thing, you're never going to create the evidence. So it's like, I think a lot of people can wait for the evidence, like it kind of, they wait for things to like, fall in their lap, but it's like, no, we actually have to go out and get it. We have to, make that first move and create that evidence and strengthen those beliefs like over time. Because now I'll just like, go to workshops, I'll drive to the sunny coast, like go to a workshop like with people I've never met. Like, it
Yeah.
creates that like exposure where it's like you just meet people, and even just like in the mastermind as well, you just get yourself into the room, like virtual room or, real room. It's pretty similar. So you just got
Mm.
to know where you want to go, like your vision. If if it aligns with your values and you know where you're going, then get yourself in the room.
Yeah. That's so cool. And it's like really highlighted to me as well that throughout your story as you're telling it, there's like a key theme of like bravery and courage. And even if you're feeling a big level of fear, you're feeling isolated, you're feeling like you're partying too much and you want to break the habit, but it's also scary to break habits that you've built over so long and things like this. It's just like a real theme of bravery and like courage and like actually just getting yourself to do the thing, even if it's scary. And I think that's really admirable. And it's just, yeah, it's so interesting to like see it play out, obviously, as a story as you're telling it. It's like,
Yeah.
oh cool, so like Zoe made a decision here for herself and here for herself as well, and like she backed herself here even though she was unsure and people were telling her no, but she did it anyway. And like, I guess even in those moments, if you didn't 100% back yourself and you were worried and like the doubts
Yeah.
were creeping in, you were still backing yourself to a level that you did it anyway. And I think that's something that we can all learn very much from, in the sense that you're never going to be 100% unless it's literally the thing that you're most convicted on in your life. You're
Yeah.
never really going to be 100% on it. And bar that one thing that you're 100% on, you kind of just have to trust yourself and trust your gut and trust that you've got yourself through anything, even when it feels like, I don't know here, this
Yeah.
might be a bit too much. This might be a
Yeah.
bit too crazy for me. Doing it anyway and failing fast or failing hard rather
Yeah.
than spending 5 years in your hometown wondering, okay, I might go out again this weekend and party because like there's nothing else to do, but like maybe this year I might go and do uni in another state, or I might go to that NLP event because it looks kind of cool, but actually I've spent all my money doing something I don't really care about because it's the easier choice. Whatever the story looks like,
Yeah.
you kept making that choice for yourself, even if there wasn't 100% conviction in backing yourself doing it, you did it anyway. And I think that's just so cool.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the key things as well. It's like the fear is never going to go away. It's like how you adapt to it, and it's how you like recognize it come up and then choose to be like, well, am I going to let this fear like control me and hold me back from the things that I know I want to do? Or am I actually just going to like sit with the fear, know that it's there, like recognize it and still just keep moving? Because it's like, for me, like, yeah, those like, those self-doubt, like those fears, like it does still come up, but I'm like, what's my bigger
Mm,
vision? Like, what's my bigger purpose? Like, you know, I value growth and I value evolution. So for me, like to just keep staying where I am, it feels out of alignment. So it's always like, yeah, cool,
mm,
this is gonna be like, a bit cooked. It might be, it might be fearful, but it's like you just see what happens on the other side of that. And yeah, it either
mm,
works or, quote unquote fail. And even if you fail, like I'm very a strong believer in like there's always a lesson. Like I'll always, and I take pride in that, like I'm always looking for the lesson of like, okay, what wisdom can I actually extract from this to just keep growing me and evolving me, like, and to
yeah.
redirect me onto the path that potentially, maybe I have made some wrong decisions, like yeah, I've definitely made some
Hmm.
wrong decisions, but it's all,
Yeah.
it's all character building.
Yeah. And it's always a redirection onto the right path, I think. Because
Exactly.
like there's been so many stages in my life where I've done things that people have told me not to. Sometimes it's not worked out, and like it's just always redirected me onto the next path, which is the path.
Yeah.
And something that comes to mind here is something M usually says, our
Yeah.
lovely darling mentor M, and it's what problems are you choosing to have? So
Yeah.
like that's something that comes up quite regularly for me now in when I'm feeling the self-doubt, when I'm feeling like I'm not convicted in something, or something feels really hard and I'm not sure if I'm making the right decision. It's the question of like, what problem am I choosing to have right now? Is it a problem that's like quote unquote valid? Like, is this something to actually be fearful of? Is this risking me in some way? Is this too much of a stretch that it's actually going to be dangerous? Or is it a problem I'm creating? Is it a problem I'm using in order to not have to think about the real stuff, or
Yeah.
something that's like just feeling a bit too expansive? So I'm like, oh, this is a problem. I can no longer do
Yeah.
this thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's very easy for our ego to be like, oh no, like we can't do that. But it's like, hang on a minute, like I actually probably can do that. So
Mm,
yeah, I really love that. And that's something that's really helped me throughout, my journey is like knowing that you do have the power of choice, like knowing that you do get to choose, the like yeah, you get to choose what problems you have or what problems you don't have or what you entertain, and it's like coming back into that. And I think that yeah, that has been one of the most pivotal things for me, because I think sometimes, and I can still, it still comes up for me, but sometimes we can be like, oh, I don't have a choice, but we do, and we can choose like
mm,
what we entertain. Like we can choose, okay, am I actually going to let this, quote unquote, like if it's a small problem, am I going to let it impact me? Like am I going to let it ruin my day? It's like that wouldn't be expansive. And then it's like, okay, well, I'm just actually choosing to have bigger problems in the world than, I don't know, something small.
mm. And that choice can feel heavy, right? Like
Yeah.
having to choose for yourself, having to be the adult in the situation and make the choice and stick with it, whether it goes good or bad or whatever. It can feel really heavy and it can feel really challenging. And like sometimes I have to make choices in my business or in my life. And I genuinely want to lie on the floor, kick and scream and be
Yeah.
like, seriously, why can no one else step in and make this decision? Because I do not want to do it. I don't want to be
Yeah.
responsible for this. I don't want to have to deal with this. I don't want the blame if this goes wrong.
Yeah.
I want to just kick and scream and be like, leave me alone, someone else decide.
Yeah.
And I find before this mindset work, before getting into self development, before learning all this about myself, I would often let that take over and hand over my power to someone else and let them make the decision for me. Whether it was my
Yeah.
best friends who knew me very well, whether it was boy, whether it was my parents, like whoever. if I felt that urge to kick and scream and lie on the floor crying because I don't want to make a decision, I would actually just hand over my power and allow someone else to make it for me. So, like, even with going to uni, lie on the floor, kick and scream. I don't know if I want to do this or not. Ask my parents. They say I
Yeah.
should go. They've made the choice. I'm doing it. Do you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah. I think, and as well, that's something that, in my journey, it's like I do this thing when I'm actually like really learning to not do it because I'll ask everyone their opinion, but I do what I want to do anyway, and that can be a strength, it can be a
Mm,
weakness. It depends how you look at it. But often, like like with partner, like with my ex or my partner or my mum or my sister, it's like I'll ask them for their opinion, and it's like almost a running joke now because it's like, why do you ask us? You're gonna do what you want to do anyway, and I'm like, I don't know. I
yeah.
don't know why I asked because it's like I've already decided what I'm gonna do. But I also just like it's almost like I'm seeking like a different perspective just to see, just to check. And I think, yeah, it can be a positive thing, it can be a negative thing, because I guess that's kind of what mentorship is, right? Like, you're
Mm,
getting their perspective, but at the end of the day, you still have the power to do what you want to do anyway. So I think
yeah.
it's really like cool that you brought that up because it's something that it's like a running joke with like my family now because it's like, why
Yeah.
bother asking? You're just
Yeah.
gonna do
It's
what
the
you want.
validation though, isn't it? And it's the validation that either you agree with me, therefore, in this choice that I've already made before asking you, I feel extra good about it. Or it's that defiance piece in the validation that, okay, you validated the fact that I disagree with you and I'm defying you right now. So I'm going to
Yeah,
make the decision that's your opposite anyway. And it's just
yeah,
really cool to notice these parts of ourselves that we build and like we hold on to and we attach ourselves to. Because even coming into that discussion of you're asking someone in your life for their opinion, knowing you've already made the decision and it doesn't really matter what they say anyway, it's
yeah,
like, okay, but I'm still attached to that. I like having that part of me that I just get that little bit of validation or that little bit of defiance when I'm asked the question. They know what I'm thinking, but I'm going to do what I want anyway. And it's those little shadowy parts that we can see and like reflect on. And it's nothing to say that you actually have to do anything with it. You can be aware of these parts of yourself and say, well, that's just a little intricacy I have, and it's something I'll deal with now and deal with going forward, and that gets to be okay. And it's also something you can reflect on and go, you know what, I don't love that. I want to shift that. I want to change that.
yeah,
And that's honestly something that really excites me about this work, because as much as people feel like it's a fix and it's something, when you uncover a shadow or you uncover a shameful part of yourself or you uncover the next thing, sometimes it feels like you have to fix it. Otherwise, you're not a good person or you're not this, you're not that. But actually, you can hold the duality and the knowing of, yeah, in this moment, I know I'm going to go seek validation because it's going to feel good. But if you can stop the parts of yourself that then do the manipulating, or stop the parts of yourself that lie to yourself, or this, that, and the other from it, actually, you're doing good for yourself. You're doing the best you can for yourself, and that gets to be good enough.
yeah, exactly. And I think, what you were saying about fixing it, and like, another way of looking at it is like people want to like integrate it, or they just want to get rid of it. And like, if you're thinking about like from a shadow work perspective, it's like if you're trying to get rid of something, it's like that's the kind of energy that got it into the shadows in the first place. So it's like
Mm,
a massive part of like personal development is actually just the self-awareness piece. It's like just noticing, like, and even for me in that specific example, it's like noticing like when something happens and I'm like, oh, I can feel that I'm wanting to go and tell this, like go and ask for this person, and I'm like, hang on a minute, how can I actually just like choose to do something different in this moment, like choose to just make my decision and check in with them after and say, hey, this is what I've done. So it's like the small kind of, it just progresses over time, and then because you're not focusing on like fixing it or like integrating it, it actually integrates faster anyway, because you're just so focused
mm,
on like choosing to keep moving, choosing to keep growing, choosing to keep becoming the person who's like, doing the different thing. And then it's like, you're like, oh, that thing's like kind of dissolved because you weren't focused on getting rid of it. So that's
yeah,
really powerful as well.
yeah. I do kind of feel like in this metaphor in my mind that I have over this work, it's kind of like you're dropped in the middle of a really dark forest with a torch and you have to try and make your way out. And actually, you're just only shining a light on what's immediately in your face. And sometimes you recognize something again and again. You're like, wait, I've been here before. Other times you're like, whoa, this is new. What the hell? This is another
Yeah.
tree. I don't know what to do with this tree. I'm a bit scared now. The sounds are getting a bit spooky. I'm freaking myself out. That's sometimes how it feels for self development. But actually, the sun is going to rise and you're going to find your way out. And it also just gets to be a fun thing. Instead of it being someone's hunting you through the forest, you can turn it into like a fun game with your mates and you're all playing tag in this like dark forest having fun. Like, it kind of just in this metaphor in my mind, it just gets to be what you make it, and it's as dark as you make it, and it's as light and as fun as you make it. And I think for all of us, making it light and fun and easy is the best way to move forward, because especially with integrating holistic practices, with integrating your mindset and things like this, the work can feel heavy because you're processing trauma, you're understanding your behaviors, you're going through conditioned patterns, and like it can weigh you down. The choices can weigh you down. The making the good decisions can weigh you down. And actually shifting that mindset piece of, oh, I have so much to do. I have so much to fix. I have so much to get through before I feel like a good person. Actually, you're already a great person. And there is nothing to fix. There's just things to shine a light on and things to integrate and dissolve and shift and change so that you just feel like a better human for yourself, for no other reason than just to feel better in yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah, so I think like people can think that, yeah, it's like this big heavy thing and it can be like heavy, but it's also just like you mentioned, making it like super fun, and it's like, I guess, just integrating it as a part of your life, not making it like this massive thing where it's like, oh, I have to do personal development, I have to do this. It's like something that you just get
Mm-hmm.
to integrate into your life, and it gets to be light, it gets to be fun, like, and it gets to be both. Like you get to be doing, the heavy, like, getting through the crux of your stuff, but also still showing up and living your life and having fun. And like, it's just that duality of like being able to do both and being able to,
Yeah.
yeah, like integrate it into your life, as opposed to being like separating it out and making it feel like it's something you don't want to do, because then it's counterproductive to doing personal
Mm-hmm.
development, and it feels like you're wanting to avoid it, where it's like when you just sort of integrate it into like little habits, or journaling, it doesn't have to be these massive, light bulb moments all the time, and often it's in like the littlest things that you can find the most, like, the most gold of, like, oh, that blind spot there, or like, oh, this thing that I'm
Yeah.
doing isn't aligned with me. It's just like noticing things like from like a neutral lens as well, like not making things mean something or whatever it may be, but it's like actually just like, noticing things within yourself. And like, shame still can come up for me and things like that, but just noticing when it comes up. And something for me that's been a massive part of my journey is like realizing that shame isn't like very productive, like it's just going to keep you stuck in the pattern. Whereas if you can actually just like look at it through a neutral lens and be like, interesting, like, why is this coming up? How can I look at this differently?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what can I actually just do differently? Then
Yeah.
the shame dissolves itself anyway.
For sure. For sure. That's so good. Mm. Yeah. It's just, yeah, it's one of those things that like it just resonates with me so deeply because I spent so much time in shame and so much
Yeah.
time in like sexual shame and like
Mm,
emotional shame over feeling the way I was feeling, and then like
yeah.
physical shame over the way I was looking, and I didn't realize that was what I was living in.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I had these kind of words to be able to put to the things I was feeling and put to my conditioned behaviors and actions and
Exactly.
the really ingrained beliefs that I was able to surpass them. And without this knowledge, without working in the coaching industry, without being part of the coaching industry and wellness and holistic lifestyles and all of this encompassing stuff of just generally doing the work in order to feel better,
Yeah.
without these kind of terms and stuff, I would probably still be stuck in that same cycle of shaming myself every day, of not feeling
Yeah.
very confident, of never really executing and backing myself on stuff. And yes, at some point, the likelihood is I would have broken through that and navigated it. But would it have taken 10 years instead of maybe two?
Yeah. And that's the
You
thing
know,
with
the
like these
way up and
spaces.
like the cost of it is
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing with these spaces, like the masterminds and just like, being with like minded women. It's like, you mentioned this at the start, it's like people put language to something that you've been feeling, and then that in a way just dissolves it, because you're like, oh my God, I didn't even
Mm,
like have the articulation for the thing that I was experiencing. And now that I have that articulation that somebody else has actually given to me, you can transcend it a lot faster. Whereas, yeah, like if you're just doing it on your own, you're not even sure, like you're like, oh, I'm doing this thing, but like I can't really understand what it is. It just keeps playing out. But then someone like,
mm,
it just takes one sentence, it just takes one voice memo or something for someone to
yeah.
say, and you're like, oh my God, like it's changed, it's changed my whole life. And it's just like seeing
Mm,
different perspectives, like seeing other people's experiences and their journeys, and like knowing that a lot of us have gone through similar journeys, and it kind of, I guess, makes you feel better knowing that there's other people who've gone through it and navigated it in different ways, and you can learn from the
Mm.
ways that other people have navigated things. I think it's so powerful, like having coaches and stuff, because it's like they've kind of, it's not like a hierarchy thing, but they've sort of been where you've been. It's like they've already got the language for the thing that you're moving through, and that's why, you move so fast, because it's
Yeah.
just putting language to things that you wouldn't have seen for, yeah, like you mentioned, it could be years. So yeah, it's just so powerful, this work.
Mm. It's so cool. And I love it so much. But
Yeah,
I do want to shift on to something that I want to ask you about, and it's centered around purpose. And I've
yeah,
been asking people that have been featured in the podcast this quite often, because I think it's something very prevalently spoken about. And even if it's not used specifically as a word, it's a general undertone, and it's in
yeah,
so much of the space around us. Um, so, really, I want to know, what is purpose to you? Do you feel like you found your purpose? If not, do you even believe in it? Yeah. What are your
yeah.
thoughts on purpose?
Yeah, I think there can, yeah, be so much pressure to be like, what's your purpose? And for me, I think it's not necessarily one purpose. Like, my purpose is to help people, and my purpose is to,
Mm,
I think another one of my purposes is to like evolve myself, and, to have kids, or like, so I think it's very multifaceted. Like, I don't think that purpose has to be this one, I guess, set in stone thing, and it can evolve over time. Like with, as you evolve, or as people evolve, it can, evolve with you. So I think for me,
mm,
purpose is very like multifaceted, as most of my, I'm a multifaceted person. So everything for me is multifaceted. But I think it's like realizing it doesn't have to just be this one decision. You don't have to just like stick with this one purpose forever. Like if you do something and it is
mm.
your purpose, it could just be for a season, and it like allowing yourself to evolve into a new purpose and being able to shift and things like that. So that's been something that's been really powerful for me, because I think, when you're younger, it's like, oh, like you have to do this. And, I'm from a family where it's like you finish school and you go to uni and you do this and you get married and you
Yeah.
have kids, and and I just never, like, yes, I want all those things, but mine was just in a bit of a jumbled up way. So,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, I think purpose is different for everyone, but for me, yeah, it's a very like multifaceted, where it's like, I always wanted to be a teacher when I was little, and now I guess to some degree I am actually doing that, but just not in the like
Mm,
in the way that I thought. Like I thought I'd be like in a classroom,
mm.
like teaching kids, where it's like it just opens up so much more when you're like, oh, I'm actually doing the thing that I wanted to do when I was younger, but in a completely different way. So, and like, I've always
Yeah.
loved helping people and things like that. So it's like just like realizing what you actually value and what you want to do. And then that helps you move towards your purpose. And it might not be in the way that you thought when you were like younger that it was actually going to come about.
That's amazing. And that's really struck a chord with me. You saying that, like, you wanted to be a teacher and now you're kind of teaching, because I wanted to be a doctor, and it was partly imposed by family and
Yeah.
partly me myself, of like wanting to
Yeah.
heal people, wanting to help people. And now thinking about that, even with like trauma healing, you are healing people. You are healing people of
Yeah.
their wounds. They might not be physical, they might
Yeah.
not be able to be seen to the eye, but you are actually healing someone. And that, yeah, that's really just struck a chord with me, actually. That
Yeah.
little me wanted to help people and heal people. And just because it's not on a physical, like touch to touch level kind of thing, doesn't
Yeah.
mean I'm not still being a doctor of sorts. And I'm by no means claiming I have an 8-year degree in medical science or anything like that. Definitely not. But that's cool. And yeah, I really love that. I really love that.
Yeah, and it's just funny when you actually you think, because like it took me a while to think like, oh yeah, when I was younger, like I remember playing schools like with my sister, and it was like I was always I'm the oldest child, so I was like always the teacher. And it's funny how like I'll be doing like a masterclass or something, or like even through this and different avenues or my content, and I'm like, oh, I'm actually, yeah, like I'm doing the thing that
Mm,
I wanted to do, but yeah, it's just in such a different lens of what yeah, what you think it's going to be. So even for you, exactly, it's like you're,
mm,
it's like the the value and the I think, what's the word I'm trying to think of? It's just like in your core, you know what you want to do. It's just like
yeah.
how is that actually going to be represented in the external world? And just, yeah, just because you're not like
Mm,
a doctor, yeah, you're still helping people at such a deep level,
yeah.
which is just so cool.
So cool. I love that. Oh, wow. That's so cool. And like on this, and I think we've been giving tips and tricks and things throughout this whole podcast episode. So I feel like this is a bit of a gold mine, to be honest. But I do want to give like Zoe's 3 actionable steps that everyone listening can take away and say, I'm going to integrate this one thing today. I'm going to take on these ideas, this kind of thing. So if you have like a 3 tips for this or 3 ideas that you want to share with the classroom, I would absolutely love if you want to share.
Yeah, yeah. So I jotted a couple down because I was like, oh my God, like there's so many that I could bring. So I've jotted a couple down, and I guess they're not necessarily all related, but they all come under the like holistic umbrella. So the first one that I wrote down was to set your circadian rhythm. So essentially your circadian rhythm is like a 24-hour cycle. So your body works in, you know, your 24-hour cycle. Your serotonin and your cortisol will rise in the morning, and then it drops off in the day, and then about 16 hours later your melatonin will start to rise. So for me, setting that circadian rhythm has been so powerful in terms of like my energy levels. So that's like a massive tip I like tell all my clients. It's like, let's start with the basics. And that's another thing, like this is a bit of a tangent, but like I think people want to skip to like all the supplements and all the powders and all of the things. And it's like,
For
if we can
sure.
just like nail the basics, like your body is so powerful, like on its own. Like obviously we need those things, we need food and stuff, but like your
Yeah.
body's actually so powerful. And when you learn to work with like the rhythms of your body, it just like elevates your energy, it elevates your sleep. So like working with this cycle is like so important for like your cortisol levels in the morning. And for me, like, you know, being someone who's like always been quite like energetic and on the go, but like, you know, I always used to be a bit of a night owl and things like that as well. Like I never used to be a morning person, so like I've really restructured to match this kind of cycle, and it's really, yeah, improved my energy. So that would be one thing that I would recommend, is like start to set this circadian rhythm. And so you can do that by like, I don't know, maybe the UK is a little bit different to Australia, but there's still like clouds and stuff. And so, and it still works if it's cloudy. So like just going outside like first thing in the morning, like without sunnies on or anything, and just like looking at the sky, and you know, even grounding like while you're doing that is really powerful, because what that basically does is, if you're looking, you know, into the light, not like obviously looking straight at the sun, but
Yeah.
it increases your cortisol levels, it increases your serotonin, and it actually suppresses your melatonin. So it actually just gives you energy by doing that. And then naturally your body will start to regulate over time, because it'll come like 16 hours later, your serotonin will start to drop off, your cortisol will start to drop off, and then your melatonin will rise. And then so you get into this cycle of like, you'll start to wake up with energy, like you start to wake up without an alarm, because your body just knows like this is the routine that we're on. So yeah, that's the
Yeah.
first one, like energy, for sleep, for, you know, mood, because serotonin for mood, things like that. So that's my first one. The second one is water. So I like harp on about this all the time, like with a lot of my clients as well. But like being hydrated is so important, and it's something that I think a lot of people can miss. It's like so many clients, I'll be like, how much water are you drinking? And they're like, not enough. And I'm like, please drink water.
Yeah.
So it's very important. And like the quality of water is also very important, because I don't know, it might be a little bit different in the UK, but in Australia, like the tap water is just like not the best. Like it's full of like chlorides and fluorides and, you know, all of these kind of things, and just the impact that that can have on your body. Like for example, like those kind of things, they mimic iodine in the body. And so if they're mimicking iodine, it blocks up your iodine receptors, and that can impact your thyroid, your metabolism, digestion. So it's all these like really intricate little things that, you know, we think are small, or we think like aren't a big deal, but they can actually have, you know, once you just shift this and start to like filter your water and things like that, it can make such a big difference for your body's ability to like absorb nutrients and actually get the water into the cells, which is really important. So another tip there would be to have like some Celtic sea salt, or like Himalayan sea salt, like in your water, or like even you can just like put it on your tongue and then have the water if you don't like want to sip it throughout the day, because that
Yeah.
actually helps your body to absorb the water a lot better and get it into your cells. Because yeah, you can be drinking like 4 liters of water a day, but if your body's not actually absorbing it properly, you're just going to pee it out basically. So
That's
making
so
sure,
interesting.
yeah, and your cells basically, you're basically made up of water. We're about 60 to 70% water. Your cells need water, so to actually get the water into the cells is like one of the most important parts. So yeah, so set your circadian rhythm, drink good water, and then the third one is nutrition. Like I kind of like, yeah, I'm like, that's a broad topic, but nutrition has been one of the most profound things for me in like how I feel and like just like like my whole life basically. Like nutrition has changed my life. Like I used to be someone who did not eat very healthy at all. So getting this knowledge has literally changed my life. So even just like the tip would be like keep it really simple, and focus on just like whole foods, like strip it right back, focus on protein, focus on carbs, focus on like fat, so like avocados, like nuts, seeds, things like that, like fruits, vegetables, like leafy greens, like just keep it really simple, and then you can kind of like build on there. And also like with nutrition, it's like for me, like I'm gonna go out and have dinner if I want to go out and have dinner. Like it's not this thing
Yeah.
where I'm like, oh, I can't have a burger or I can't have, you know, whatever it is. Like if I'm going out for dinner, I'm having what I want to get. So it's like this
Yeah.
duality of like 95% of my life I'm eating, you know, this organic, you know, food, and even like the snacks that I have are like pretty good organic, like good quality foods. But it's like detaching from like this all or nothing mindset with food as well. It's like, yeah, being able to enjoy yourself and also knowing that you are having those like the holistic foundations of nutrition where it's like you're getting all of your nutrients, so it doesn't really matter if you have a meal out because you're like, cool, I'm hitting all my nutrients, I know I'm getting enough protein, I know I'm getting enough selenium and zinc and all of those kind of things as well. So that one was a bit of a
Yeah.
but I guess to sum
No,
up
so good.
yeah, I guess to sum up the third one, it's like keep nutrition really simple, and yeah, just be mindful of like what's in things as well. Like that would be probably a big thing for me. It's like instead of like looking at the calories, actually just like starting to familiarize yourself like with ingredients, and you know, because there's a lot of like oils and sugars in things that it's in like pretty much a lot of things. So it's just like familiarizing yourself and realizing how foods make you feel, and you know, when you do have things, it's like, oh, is there any symptoms? Like, you know, do I get a headache if I have sugar? Or do I, you know, when I have this protein, it makes me feel really good afterwards. I feel full, and I don't get sugar cravings. So it's like just being really in tune with your body and like noticing how different things make you feel.
Yeah. I've learned a lot there myself, to be honest. And I feel like I know a fair bit about nutrition and all these things, but I did not know some of those things. And that's so cool. And I think as well on that last point as well, it just kind of came up for me as a thought that like in that you're holding yourself to a higher standard and you're choosing greater options for what you're putting inside of yourself, this vessel that you're part of right now. You're putting
Yeah,
things inside it, and you can choose to hold higher standards for yourself. And whether that higher standard at that moment is like the example I used before, the apple versus the bag of Skittles, if that higher
yeah,
standard at the moment is okay, well, actually, instead of apple versus Skittles, it's Skittles versus an entire bag of whatever. I don't
yeah,
know, choose something in your mind. If that's the higher choice, it's a bag of Skittles instead of like a whole feast. Okay, choose the higher standard, which is the bag of Skittles.
yeah,
But if you can
yeah,
also get to a point where it's an apple versus a bag of Skittles, and you know the apple's actually going to treat you better, then you choose the higher standard for yourself, where you're choosing the apple. And it's not a case of this restriction that we are talking about earlier. That okay, you have to stick to the apple, the apple, the apple, because the
yeah,
Skittles are
exactly.
bad now, and the Skittles are the enemy, and we can't have
Yeah,
those. It's actually just I'm going to choose higher standards for myself. I'm going to appreciate my body
exactly.
and what appreciate it through what I'm putting in to fuel it, and even down to
Yeah,
the water, which I didn't even know, because that's kind of triggered something for me as well to investigate. I'm drinking a lot of water, but yet I'm still thirsty. So I'm
yeah,
thinking now is actually my absorption of water, because I drink tap water. And it is a bit different in the UK, but it's still definitely got chlorides and fluorides and things like that in. I'm thinking actually now my higher standard might have to be switching to filtered water,
yeah,
and that's doable for me. So that is my higher standard. Like I'm not going to go out and buy like 3,000 bottled 3,000 things of bottled water, but I might now go buy a filter
yeah,
for my water, and that's my higher
yeah,
standard. So if you're finding that a bit daunting, thinking, wow, like Zoe, this is amazing, but I don't know how to implement this, those easy fixes and like choosing the higher standard for yourself and reframing it that way, it's going to allow you to implement those three amazing steps so much easier than like spinning around in your head of what do I do with this? Because
yeah,
it
exactly.
is where like, especially when you're getting into the start of this, it can feel intimidating, can't it? Because you're
Yeah,
learning all this new stuff and you're like, wait, what do I do with all this
yeah,
knowledge?
yeah, exactly. exactly. And something I tell a lot of my clients is like, yes, yes, there are a lot of factors, but it's like pick one thing and then nail that one thing. And it's like, yeah, like a lot of people, it is, they'll switch to a water filter and it's like, cool, yeah, I feel really good in that. I'm drinking my filtered water. I'm feeling more hydrated.
Mm.
Next, what I'm going to focus on is eating more protein. And then it's like this kind of journey of like, not all or nothing, not having to just like throw out your whole life and be like start everything from
Yeah.
scratch. It's like, how can I just like make these little shifts, like make these little tweaks? And yeah, like you said, it's like a standards thing. It's like, okay, yeah, like the next standard for me, like to increase my standards is like filter my water. And then from there it might be like, oh yeah, I might start whatever, getting up earlier, or like whatever it may be. And it's really just like building over time. And that's where the sustainability comes in, because, I find with my clients, when they do just like do a few things at the start and then they do a few more things and then they do a few more things and then they start to tweak things. Like, for someone, it might just be swapping out dairy in their coffee, and they do the almond milk for a couple of weeks and like that's their thing and they feel really good in that. And then we do the next thing. So it's like, it doesn't have to be this like throw out everything and start again. It's really just finding those little pockets of things that that suit you at that time. And then once you've nailed that, and it builds that evidence for yourself as well, you're like, cool, well, if I can do this, like what's next? How can I actually just feel better? Like what's the next thing that I can do to improve my health, to improve my mindset, improve tweak some things in my diet? Because it's not necessarily like getting rid of everything. It's like, how can I just bring in some more things? Like, and maybe I can have, some more fruit with breakfast, or maybe I can just like have some more veggies with dinner, or maybe I can just do this. And it's just like over time, it just becomes a part of who you are. Sorry. Yeah. It just becomes like, it just becomes a habit and it becomes ingrained. And then you're like, oh, didn't even realize that I've just started doing this every single day now, sort of thing.
Yeah, amazing. And I'm going to be so bold, actually. I'm going to be bold and I'm going to ask you, can I request an Instagram post, an IG live, a story, something for us UK girlies with our circadian rhythm, which essentially means right now it doesn't get light till about 8 a.m. and it gets dark by about 3:30. So for us girlies that are like, okay, but I need to get up and go to the gym at like 5 a.m. So like, what do I do about looking at the sun when it's actually the moon still in the sky? So for us suffering girlies in this darkness that is the UK right now, if I can request an Instagram post or a story or something of your tips for after this podcast that we can go and check out, I would love to request that from you.
Yeah, even just a quick one is like, just put as many lights on, or even if you've got like a salt lamp or something, like just even, it's obviously not the sun, but it's still like the light in your eyes, whether it's artificial light or the sun is obviously better, but if it's not available to 8 a.m, I didn't realize that. So if that's not available, then even just like putting on the other lights, because it's still going to switch your body, it's the melatonin's going to suppress. And that's why, screens before bed and things like that, people, we hear about that, like the blue light and things like that. But in the morning, like if you're putting the lights on, it's going to increase that serotonin, it's going to decrease the melatonin. So even just doing that, like probably not what you want to be doing at 5 a.m, just flicking all the lights on, but it is more benefit, like that. I guess that would be the way around that.
Amazing. Yeah, in the UK, honestly, between November and February, we do not see the sun. It is straight darkness. We have like maybe 6 hours, 7 hours of like light, but it's essentially just like 4 p.m. darkness in the summer all the time. It doesn't. We don't really see the sun that much. Hence why this great girl is looking so pale. Like, look at this skin. This is not my natural coloring. This is the depths of winter.
I think because I live on the Gold Coast, so I get like in my little Queensland bubble, and I'm like, the sun gets up at like 4:30.
It's light everywhere.
But the thing I would suggest is at least getting just even a salt lamp, or just put the lights on in your bedroom, like something like that. It's still going to flip that switch of because it's like, not to get too sciencey, but like it gets in, once it's in your eyes, it basically that signals something to your body, and it just it sets that rhythm where it suppresses the melatonin, and then it increases the serotonin and the cortisol as well.
Perfect. Amazing. I love that. Thank you so much for those tips, Zoe. Like, they're going to be very revolutionary for many people, and it's really helped me, to be honest, even in our little chat. So I can only imagine how many other people it's going to help. I do want to skip on, actually, because I was going to ask you another question, but I feel like we've touched on so much of what I was going to ask you, that it's actually going to be more fun to ask you about the fun stuff. I really want to
Yeah.
ask you about something fun in your life that you're doing right now, whether it's you're reading it, you're watching it. How are you finding fun outside of your work and outside of what you do in the day job kind of thing?
Yeah, I think for me, like, and something I've really anchored into this year is like, I'm very much an experienced person. So, like, for me, fun is like, and there's two parts to this. Like, for me, I can just lay in the sun outside in my garden and like do nothing. And that's really fun for me. Because I like my
Mm,
star sign is a Cancer, so I can be a bit of a hermit. So I love just like chilling by myself. But then the other part of that is like I like experiencing, like driving up the coast, like going to the sunny coast, like I mentioned at the start, like I'm going on holiday soon, like I'm going on a big road trip with my sister. So I think doing those little experiences and, even just like going for beach walks with friends, like getting out of my house because I'm in my house a lot with work and stuff, being on my laptop a lot. So getting out and about, like going to the beach, like, yeah, I know it sounds so cliche, but like the beach is like my happy place. And so, yeah,
I
just
love
getting out
that.
there, like being in the sun and just experiencing things like, like I am a bit of a foodie as well. So like going to, I am very into my nutrition, but I love eating out. I love eating good food. So going to different restaurants and like seeing new places, like that for me is, yeah, really how I like fill my cup up outside of work.
I love that. I can already picture the fact that I'm going to be a beach girly when I get to Australia. You're just not
Yes.
going to catch me anywhere else. And
Yeah.
me and that sand, we're going to be best
Yeah.
buddies. I can't say
Yes.
me and the
Come
water are
and
going to be best
visit.
buddies because I can't really swim. So me and the sand, we're going to be best
Yeah.
buddies.
Yeah. Yes. Come to Queensland. Come visit me in Queensland. That would be the
No,
best.
honestly, it's the place to be. Like I'm going to be there. I will. I promise you now.
Yeah.
I'm going to
You
be
would
there.
love
Touch
it.
wood.
You would love it.
Amazing. That's so fun. And I think it's just really cool to like it's so good and well getting to know you on like a business level, but I think it's just so nice and so fun to know what you do for fun because so often we get caught up in like all the work and like what we do as jobs because we're so passionate about it that we kind of forget that
Yeah.
people don't know what we do outside of what
Yeah.
we're super passionate about. Because
Yeah.
yeah, like you said, going on your road trips, going getting out of the house, going just to the beach, like it's so fun and it's so simple. And I think it's sometimes the case where we forget to find fun and we forget to
Yeah.
do things just for ourselves and nothing other than enjoyment. Like you're not
Yeah.
monetizing it, you're not making
Yeah.
it a part of the business, like whatever, you're just having fun. And yeah, it's so
Yeah.
easy to just lose that part of yourself.
Yeah.
So I think it's really fun to talk about it. So yeah, I love
Yeah,
that.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. And I think, yeah, exactly like you said, like, as an entrepreneur and like you can just get in the motions and it's like, hang on a minute, I just need to check in with myself and be like, am I actually having fun and am I like tapping into play and like adventure and all of this sort of
Mm,
stuff? Because it's like, and even last weekend for me was a perfect example of that. Like, I have been pretty go, go, go in my business and everything. And then I actually just pretty much had the full weekend off and it got to Sunday night and I had like content like coming out my ass. I was like, oh, I've had the weekend
yeah.
off and like, all the content, like now everything like
Isn't
creativity
that
comes.
it?
So it's like you can take it, you feel like you're taking a step back, but it's actually propelling you forward.
Mm,
So it's like not making it wrong to just like step away from the business or to step away from, the phone, the, scrolling, whatever it is for people. But it's like the more you do that, the more like, yeah, creativity you can tap into your creativity.
mm. And I guess honestly, you can use my little analogy of being in the forest for that
Yeah.
too, about finding fun
Yeah.
and creating space. Because when the sun comes up, suddenly you can see all the trees again. You can see all the
Yeah.
ideas. Ah,
Yeah,
I love that. I
exactly.
love
Oh,
this
I love
analogy.
that.
Thanks so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. And then nature, like grounding, like so good for you.
Yeah, amazing. Oh, best analogy ever. I'm writing it down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so now I just want to kind of ask you about what's going on in your world because I know everyone
Yeah.
is going to be like chomping at the bit, wanting to know how we can jump in stuff in Zoe's world because Zoe is amazing and we want to get to know everything she's got going on right now. So if you can give me the rundown, give me
Yeah.
everything you've got going on right now. I want to know it all.
Yeah. So at the moment, so there's a few things in the work. So there'll be, yeah, launching probably December, January. So keep your eyes peeled for that. But at the moment, I'm just doing one-to-one, and then I have a free masterclass. So it's like a free training called Nail Your Nutrition coming out. So
Amazing.
that will be completely free. I will be launching that within the next couple of weeks, hopefully, just getting everything organized, like my road trip and everything. That's coming out. I have another free masterclass. So it's called Optimal. So that's also coming in the new year as well. And then I have a few other courses and things. So there's one, I have calibration code. So that's really like my foundational, like self-development. Like it was basically everything that I found beneficial when I was really starting out in my journey. And I just put it all into like mini trainings essentially and put it into a course. So I have that. It's kind of like an evergreen. So you can just purchase the trainings. And then, there's a few other things. I might as well just like give it a bit of a soft launch now. But I have a course called Holistic Hottie coming out next year. So I won't give too much away.
You had it here first, people.
This is like the first time I've really like spoken about it other than like in the mastermind and stuff. So that will basically be basically an extension of my life, and it's really cool what I've got planned for that. So it's still in the works at the moment, so probably coming like February next year. So there's a few different things in the works, but keep your eyes peeled. The next thing that will be coming out is Nail Your Nutrition Masterclass.
Amazing. That's so exciting. And there's free offers in there, there's one-to-one coaching, there's offers coming out. So if you're thinking, this is for me, but I kind of have to put some ducks in a row, I have to work out what's going for me next, then in February next year you've got something launching that is perfect for you. So definitely make sure you follow Zoe. I'm going to leave all of her details below into the description if you're watching this, or wherever you're clicking on your phone right now if you're listening to it in your ears. But definitely check out Zoe, because as you can already tell by getting to this point in the podcast, she is fucking amazing and I adore her. She's amazing. So that is everything that's going on in Zoe's world right now. So exciting. I love it.
Lots happening. I feel like it's all kind of been like in the works and everything's sort of starting to come to fruition now, so it's all very exciting.
So good. Is there anything else that you want to drop in for the listeners right now? Any last raging thoughts that you think, I can't leave this podcast episode without mentioning this? Now is your time.
I think I've covered a lot. I'm trying to think what else.
That is perfect. No, if you've covered everything that's in the top of your brain, absolutely perfect.
I'm feeling complete. I'm feeling like, and I guess, just if you even just like my DMs are always open. If you have any questions about anything that I've spoken about, if you want to know more, like I'm always open to, as you guys can probably tell from listening to this, I'm very passionate about what I do. So, my DMs are always open. I love opening up conversations and, just having a chat with people. So if you feel the pull, then just send me a DM and we can always open up a conversation.
Perfect. This is amazing. And I'm so excited for everything you've got coming, to be honest. I'm going to be there clicking through all your stories like, oh my God, Zoe's launching this and this and this. And I'm so excited. And it's going to be so good. And I'm so excited for what you've got coming. Thank you so much for being on this podcast. Thank you so much for coming on this specific episode of Alex Fun Thoughts. It's been amazing having you. You've delivered so many knowledge bombs. Everything that you basically come out of your mouth has been pure gold. So I'm going to snip down all of this and it's all going on TikTok with your permission, of course.
Of course. That's fine with me.
Thank you. And it's been so fun. So I hope everyone listening has had the best time with us this evening that we're recording, this morning that Zoe's recording. And I cannot wait for you to jump into Zoe's world first of all, but also just to see what we've got coming up next on the podcast. There are going to be many more guests. There are going to be many more cool episodes. So Zoe will probably be listening into those. I'll be jumping into Zoe's DMs, sometimes even asking for her back, to be honest, because this is great. So I'm going to round this up here, guys. Thank you for listening, and I will see you in the next episode.